Hey fabulous DIYers, it's Deanna Tabois here, and in this video we are going to snatch our waist and create ourselves a twisted cutout waist maxi dress. So if you are interested in seeing how to create this style, let's begin. So here I'm going to be using velvet. I'm working with 2.5 yards, but I recommend for you to get 3 yards just in case. And I'm also using 3 yards of interlock stretch lining. Also, you're going to need your favorite Bodycon knit dress. I'm using this one. It's one of my favorites. Also, you need a piece of pattern paper. You can use brown paper as well. Okay, so you're going to fold your dress in half. And here I am drawing my center front line so that way I can place center of my dress at that front line. Then after that, you're going to trace the whole entire dress, leaving out the sleeves. We're going to come back to it a little bit later. So here I traced out my dress. So you're going to go ahead and perfect your side seam. I have my curve ruler and my straight ruler. And I folded my paper in half so I can get 2 pieces at the same time, and one will be for my back and the other will be for my front. We're gonna have a center front seam at the back and the front, so I'm going to draw a 1/2 inch seam allowance at that center line, so it will be cut twice. So here I'm indicating my seam allowance, that way I know that it is there. And here are my 2 pieces. I also put notches at the hip and waist so that way I know where to match my piece of fabric when I cut them out. So we're going to work with the front only. We're going to put the back to the side for later. As you can see, I drew a straight line across at my waistline and I cut that in half. And then now we are going to put that bottom half to the side and work at the top. So here you're going to see that I came in about 4 inches from the center front to 2 inches up from the bottom edge of my pattern at the top bodice, and I'm going to draw a diagonal line and cut away that excess because that's going to be my cutout part of the waist. So I went up 2 inches. You can go as high as you want or as low as you want. Now I'm going to take the bottom portion of my pattern and I'm going to match it up to the top point where I started to come in, which was 4 inches, and 2 inches down. And I draw that diagonal line so that way I can cut that away. So that's going to be my cutout part of the skirt and the cutout part of the top bodice of the waist. Now I wanted more gathers at my waistline, so I went ahead and add slashes. So you can see that I came from the center front of my bodice and drew 2 lines and just went ahead and slashed it, not all the way through my pattern but close enough to the edge where it can open up. You can see that right here. So I ran out of pattern paper, so I'm going to use brown paper, and the brown paper will show exactly how it's supposed to look. And I'm going to tape it down. I want the spread to be about 1 inch to 1.5 inches apart from each other. And here I'm just taping it down so that way it can stay in place while I open up that slash spaces to get them all even. Tape them down so that way it can stay in place. After that, from the edge of the bottom, I drew a line straight across, and I'm going to match it to the center front and continue down the center front to connect it to the bottom. That's my new bodice area. And I'm going to draw in the side slash and cut out my pattern. And at the very bottom edge of the pattern, I indicated that's the fold because I'm going to be cutting that on the fold. Once that's complete, we're going to do the same thing for the bottom skirt as well. And I came from the center front and down to the side, a little bit above the hip line. And I did that twice. You can see that here. And then I'm going to open up and slash it. And that's going to be 1.5 inches apart each. Here I put the brown paper once again, and I'm going to tape it down to make sure that it is what the spacing I want it to be. Again, I drew up the center front line all the way up to the top of the skirt and drew across, and then I cut out my pattern, as you can see right here. Also, at the top of my skirt pattern, I also added a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance because that's going to be cut not on the fold. So for the bottom of the skirt now, as you can see, I kind of curved it out. So I added a piece of brown paper and I drew my line for my center front line, and I connected the bottom of the skirt onto the top edge of this paper. It depends on how long you want your maxi dress. I wanted mine to be about, I think it's 65 inches from my shoulder all the way to the ground, so I had to go and divide those measurements in between my patterns. And draw in my side seam. As you can see, Jinxie is trying to get that paper ball. And then once I did that, I cut out my pattern. The width of the bottom of the skirt was about 17. My fabric wasn't wide enough, so I couldn't go even wider. So here I noticed that my pattern was kind of weird because I didn't adjust the length properly, so I had to go back and adjust where the placement of where I put the additional paper. So I came down about 8 inches from my hip mark to adjust the length of the skirt part of the front, and then once I corrected it, I redrew my side seam as you see me doing it here, and now I'm cutting it out. So this is the proper length, and I'm going to do the same thing for the back portion of the dress. And again, I'm adding the additional paper towards the bottom, and I use the front part of the skirt as a guide to help me to figure out the placement. But once again, it's about 8 inches from the hip mark, and I tape the additional paper there. And once you're finished, your patterns will look just like this. Now it's time for you to pull out your fabric. I'm working with velvet. Once again, you can use any fabrics you like for the holidays or whatever season you're using it for. And then you want to go ahead and cut out your patterns. I cut out my skirt, as you can see, 2 pieces, and I'm going to cut out the top. Again, it has a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I cut out the back as well. Indicate your notches so that way when it's time for you to match up the patterns, you can. So now I took a piece of velvet fabric, making sure that it's on the green. I'm going to fold it downwards in the same direction as the way I cut that other fabric. You don't want to cut them in different directions. I'm going to place my pattern against the fold and cut it out. As you can see, I'm cutting out the side seam, the cutout part, and the armhole, but the bottom edge of the pattern is not cut out. It will be on the fold. And once you remove the pattern, it should look like this, connected. It's like 2 pieces connected together. You should have a triangle at the side. You want to do the same for your lining, and once you got your lining cut out, it is time for you to put them together. So carefully watch how I place the pattern. I'm placing my lining on top of the velvet at the face, and then I'm going to pin them down to stitch a zigzag stitch, a 1/4 of an inch, and it will look just like this. Here at the center point, I'm going to clip it in just a little bit so it can easy. And then after that, you want to fold it back up and pin 1 to 1.5 inch away from that edge along the center front. And you're going to do this for the shell of the bodice and the lining of the bodice. It will look just like this, and you will stitch a straight stitch. So yeah, I have 2 pieces pinned together, and I'm going to stitch them down. Is complete, it will look just like this with the 1.5 inch at the edge. It should be a hole there. Now I'm just removing my pins, and I'm going to open up the bodice, the front part of the bodice with the lining. And here I'm going to show you that you just want to connect them together and try to, and I'm opening this center front seam just to make it more flatter. I don't want it to be too bulky. and then place the lining right on top. I'm going to put a pin there just to hold it in place just for now, and then I'm going to just smooth the bottom part out. You should create a loop hole type area. You see where my finger is coming through? That's the loop where we're going to be able to loop the bottom portion into this hole. It will look just like this. So I'm going to knead out the bodice so you can see better what it looks like. Now we got our skirt. It's already cut out. I'm going to connect the top just like I did at the top bodice, but this time we're just going to sew the top edge because this was not cut on the fold, and I'm going to just pin it together and sew it 1/4 inch zigzag stitch. This is what it looks like. It's basically the same way as the top bodice. You want to do the same thing for your lining as well. And once you have your lining already stitched down, apply the lining to the face of the velvet fabric or your fabric, and you want to pin it down to stitch it 1/4 inch zigzag stitch. Make sure it's nice and neat. Now I'm just cutting a little bit of an excess away that was hanging off a little bit. And then now we're going to open it up and fold it back with the lining on the inside, as you can see here. I'm just going to knead everything up so you can see the shape of it. There we go. And now what we're going to do is we are now going to take our top bodice, and that hole that was at the bottom, we are going to take our skirt and slip it through where it meets the center of the skirt. So here I'm starting at the hem, just pushing it through that hole and pulling it through. And we're going to pull it all the way through to the center of the skirt. There goes my center. Let me pull it all the way down. And it will look just like this. And you just want to go ahead and just adjust it, knead it up as best as possible. As much as possible, you can get it neat. Now at the front now of the skirt, you're going to fold it back on the wrong side, and you're going to pin down at the center front seaming to where you want your slit to stop. And you're going to get as close as you can to the center where the hole is at the top bodice, and you're going to place a pin there to start stitching and stopping all the way down to your slit. Here you can see I'm kneading it up and just making sure that everything is evened out. And you're going to stitch from the beginning of the top of the skirt and down to the slit. And as you can see, I did it here, and I did a straight stitch. And it will look just like this. And once you're finished with that, you want to check it. Here's the dress. So far, I don't like the twist area of the waistline, so I'm going to go back and make my adjustments, because for some reason here has a little bit of access, and I don't like this bunching nonsense that's happening right now. So something happened with my pattern. I'm going to have to go back and make a different design. I might do a different twist design in the center because I don't understand what's going on with this. So now I'm going to fix my pattern. As you can see, I didn't like the way it looked. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my pattern and make my adjustments. So here I decided to close up the extra shirring that I created. So I went back and adjusted my pattern. I started with the skirt, readjusted the side seam, and then adjusted as much shirring I wanted. I wanted to be evenly just as the top, and then I came down about an inch and removed that excess from the top. So it's a 1 inch shorter at the top, and then drew in a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance just for me to indicate. At the top bodice as well, I came down about an inch and removed that excess as well, and made sure that it was evened on both patterns at the waistline. And my patterns look great. So as you can see, I'm opening up the skirt. So now I'm going to go back and recut it out on the fabrication again. And I replaced the skirt with the new pattern on top and recut out what I made changes on. And then also put everything back together as I did previously, like I showed you, and then check to see if it was right. And now it looks so much better. Once we are done connecting the lining and the center front as we did previously, we are going to connect the lining to the skirt front to create our slit, and that starts from the point where you want your slit to start. And then you're going to do it one side of each other. So you're going to pin down from that skirt point, from that slit point, and you're going to take it all the way down to your hem. One by one you're going to do it, so that way it'll be nice and neat. The lining will be connected to the front shell of the skirt hem, just like this, and it will be nice and neat and clean, leaving the side seams open. So this is what it will look like. So now it's time to connect your back lining. So I will recommend you to put a zipper in. Velvet does not stretch a lot unless you got 4-way stretch. 2-way stretch does not stretch a lot. So what I recommend you to do is install a zipper, an invisible zipper or a zipper of your choice at the center back seam at this point. But here I didn't do that, so I'm just going to connect it. Now you want to take the front portion of your dress, and we're going to connect the linings together. So here I'm taking the front bodice of the lining, and I'm going to connect it at the shoulder. Then I'm going to place the shoulders of the front bodice and the back bodice together. And once you've got everything sewn down, straight stitched, it will look like this. Let me just neat that up. And there you have it. So now I'm going to take just the back lining only away from the dress. We're going to use that later. And I'm going to connect the side seams of the front bodice and the back bodice together at the side seam only. So here you can see me putting the top portion of the bodice connected to the back portion of the dress, like that. And you want to continue this all the way down to the side seam. And remember that you have notches, so you can match the notches against the back of the dress, so that way you know how high to go up when it comes to your cutout at the waist. And here I'm matching them and pinning them down into place. Next, once you have all your side seams connected like this, now you want to place your front back lining on top of the front bodice and connect them at the side seam now. So it should be all 4 pieces together. You want to repeat the process on the other side at the side seam and then stitch it straight down. As you can see, I cleaned it up with overlock stitching. And then once you finish stitching it, it will look just like this. And now I'm going to flip the lining inside out, nice and neat, fully lined. So now we got to clean up the neckline. You just want to go ahead and just connect this the neckline with a zigzag stitch. I just stitched it about 1/4 of an inch. I didn't want it to be too bulky. and I did a zigzag stitch all the way around so it can be nice and clean. And I'm going to adjust my lining and connect it to the armhole so that way it doesn't move around too much. So now after that's done, you want to go ahead and do your sleeves. The remainder of my fabric, I went ahead and just folded in half and placed my dress sleeve on the fold to cut out the pattern. I also indicated a 1/2 inch seam allowance at the armhole. You want to cut it again so you can have 2 pieces. Once you have your 2 pieces, it's time for you to sew them together. So I sewed both pieces together and cleaned them up with overlock stitching, and now I'm going to install my sleeve. So when I'm installing my sleeve, I'm making sure that the lining is connected with the bodice as I pin the sleeves together. And then once the sleeve is pinned together, I'm going to sew all 3 pieces down together and then clean it up with an overlock stitching. As you can see, it's all pinned and ready to be sewn down with a zigzag stitch. See, my armhole is cleaned with the overlock stitching. Finally, I'm going to hem my bottom, which is 1/8 of an inch finishing. It will look just like this. And once you're complete, you're ready to wear. So this is it. This is the final look. And if you love this video, please comment down below and let me know your thoughts. And if you haven't subscribed and you're new to this channel, please subscribe so that way you can see more videos like these. Till next time, bye guys.